Dimitri Prabhu and family, they're sponsoring in the memory of Nayana Mataji, first passing away anniversary. Mataji left her body exactly a year back. Middle of chanting from all the devotee association in Grand Rapids. So she's always in our memory. So let's express our gratitude, because gratitude for all these families. Loudly chant. Let's loudly chant one time.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Also, a couple of announcements. As we know, Damodar Run is going on. 1 month long, so we have 3 whole weeks. So if your heart desire, please consider arranging a program at your house, invite your friends and family, and anyone. There are multiple people who can help you set up the program. Nothing much is needed, no dakshina, no prasadam cooking. All we need is small place where we can put nice picture of Radha Damodar, and team will bring everything. They'll bring cacao, they'll bring vivek, everything. All we need is close to 1 hour of your time, so we can do a little Krishna Katha about Damodar and help everyone do the key lamp offering. Right? So you can invite your friends, family, colleagues, neighbors, everyone you can invite, as many people as you want. So if you're looking for more details, please see Rohit Guru, we can help organize the class.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Thank you very much for coming and attending the Sunday program of ISKCON Farmington. Very grateful. Sometimes Krishna shows his causeless mercy on us in a very unexpected way. Today we have received that mercy in the form of Her Grace Chintamani Mataji. Month of Kartik and Sunday days. We have the blessed presence of Her Grace Chintamani Mataji, one of the illustrations of our disciples. So I take this opportunity for notification to introduce her. She came to Krishna consciousness in 1969. Srila Prabhupada came to America and he did his first youth program in Alfred Hitchcock Hall, Columbus. 2,000 students attended. She is one of the 2,000 students. And by seeing Srila Prabhupada, she was so inspired. Immediately Prabhupada from there went to Vrindavan and she followed him to Vrindavan. Today she tells all the stories, her interaction with Srila Prabhupada. And she spent there, she was there for a month. And she got opportunity to personally serve Srila Prabhupada at that time. Then she got initiated there in 1969. Then she was so inspired, she traveled to Japan. And with Bhagavatam Prabhu and Sudama Prabhu, she opened a temple in Japan. Haribo! Everyone of you, if you have the same courage, please open a temple. Then, what is that? After that, she came to Los Angeles temple. Sorry, she also went to Manila, Philippines, to open another temple. And 1, 2. What is that? I should do something with Krishna, right? It's not like always, the regular duties. Let me do something, and you add that in your resume. To open temple to Krishna, actually, or temple for Krishna. She went to Manila and opened a temple. Then she came to Los Angeles, and she stayed there. And right now, currently, she is living in Detroit temple. She received personal instruction from Krishna Prabhupada. Prabhupada told her to worship deities in that personal. And she has been doing since then till now. She has been taking care of Jaina deities. And Our favorite service is daily worship, cooking, and singing, another which we are honored to have you here. Thank you very much. And we request that you come again and again and bless us with your presence. Today she's going to tell her reflections to Prabhupada. Let us express our gratitude to Chintamani Mataji. Lord, is only 3 years old. You guys must notice that
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've only given class a few times in my whole life, and I haven't given one for 10 years. So, is it okay if I just chant the Jairada?
one more thing. So you have a small gift that you're here. So, so and I requested that we will do the food washing for you.
Good. Oh. Very nice.
Wash your feet. She said, definitely not. I'm gonna do that. So she, in her, English extreme ability, she said, so in 2 weeks to come, you'll see. Srinandana Prabhu also. Very well. Let us face Stephen Knapp as the whole world knows. Thank you.
As I was saying, I've only given class a few times in my life, and I haven't given one for 10 years. So I'm just going to chant Jai Radha Madhava. I know the words, but I might get nervous, so I thought I might forget them. I'm not going to say all the Sanskrit, I can't remember everything. I'll just tell some Srila Prabhupada pastimes, if that's okay. Thank you. Jai Radha Madhava Jabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jana Bala Varadani Gopi Jana Bala Varadani Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bharatari Yamuna Tira Bharatari Jaya Radha Madhava Jabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jabi Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Shri Bharatani Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Shri Bharatani Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Harikon, Harikon. So I haven't had as many pastimes with Srila Prabhupada as Mother Malati, but had some, and every little bit counts. And I'm actually hot. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Actually, I was going in the very beginning. I was going to Ohio University in Athens, not Ohio State University. I'm from Columbus, and what happened was, but even before that, when I was in high school, I started taking yoga classes, and it was not popular at that time at all. And I was taking lessons from a student of Dr. Mishra. You've heard of Dr. Mishra. If you've read the Lilamrita, you know Dr. Mishra had an ashram, and Prabhupada stayed there, but he was an impersonalist. So I was reading his book, and I was taking yoga from his one of his disciples, and I went to Syracuse, New York, to stay with one of his more famous disciples, and she was trying to get us to meditate on nothing, you know. And I was really trying, and finally I said, can I think about Jesus? I didn't know about Krishna yet. Well, okay, in the beginning you can. And so then what happened was I after high school, my parents wanted me to go to college right away. So I went in the summer, fall, and winter. And thank you, Mom, for that, because otherwise I would have never met Prabhupada, who came in the spring to Columbus when I was back with my parents. And just one devotee came to Athens, Ohio. His name's Prajumna. He's a famous Sanskrit scholar. I think he lives in New York now. And he came with another boy, and then I got a phone call. Actually, I had a little altar in my dormitory with the picture of Jesus. I'd been praying for about a year intensely. Please help me to understand who God is. I'd read Autobiography of a Yogi, as many Prabhupada disciples had, but I didn't know about Krishna. And I get a phone call one day from someone named Jim. Now, this person, Jim, also later became initiated. And he said there's going to be some yogi coming to a house, and he's going to give a talk and make a vegetarian feast. Well, I was the only vegetarian I knew in the college. And I was like, a vegetarian feast? Okay, yeah, I'm going to come. I didn't really know how to cook anything. And so Jim, the only reason I knew Jim was a white guy, but he had a big afro hair. And if you took LSD and had a bad trip, you'd go talk to Jim. So I only talked to him one time because I wasn't like a hippie, but I tried LSD a couple of times back then. So Jim said, yeah, gave me the address. So I know it was the winter because it was snowing. So it was either like December or January. It was either 1968 or 1969. And I remember I went and knocked on the door, and Prajumna opened it. And he had this big smile. It made me very suspicious. Like, what's he so happy about? I've never seen anyone look like that before, And so, come on in. And there was a few other people there. And I looked in the kitchen. I was looking around. He was cooking like all these different things. My eyes must have got big. He said, "Don't taste anything." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he had us cutting up fruit. There was a fruit salad. I actually remember what he made. He made raisin chutney. I've never had that since then. Raisin chutney. He made puris. He made like fruit salad and cottage cheese. He made halava. He made sabji. Anyway, then he went into a room, was ringing a bell in front of a picture. I was like, what's going on? When do we get to eat? And so there was probably about 10 of us there, and we got to eat. And I remember, I wanted to know, how do you make this, and what's this, and how do you make this? But he was trying to sell me Bhagavad Gita, the first ones, the blue kind. I was like, but how do you make this? Because I already had the Bhagavad Gita, but not as it is. And I'd read it, I liked it, but I didn't know much about Krishna after I read it. So anyway, he talked for quite some time. In fact, and we had kirtan. And in fact, he talked, we all sat in the living room, and I remember him looking at his watch. It was 4:00 in the morning. And he'd had us write our phone numbers and names on a piece of paper. And it just so happened, Prajumna had just opened in Columbus, Ohio, a few minutes from my parents' house, a preaching center. So in the spring, I went there. I was going, and then he said, "Why don't you write to Srila Prabhupada?" Now I was a Christian, and I liked reading Bhagavad Gita. I liked Indian things, Indian food. But you know how Christians say, Jesus is the only way. Jesus is the only way, and they're going to fool you. You're going to go to hell, or something like that. So I wrote to Prabhupada. I don't remember what I said, but some questions about Jesus. And he wrote me a really nice letter. And he said, we don't ask anyone to give up their love for their religion. Just add chanting Hare Krishna. So I didn't have any pictures of Krishna. I had never seen deities or anything. So I had a Bible when I was chanting Hare Krishna, a picture of Jesus. And I like the chanting. And then he also said in that letter, he said, I hear you're a great devotee of Jesus Christ. And when I come to Columbus, I will talk to you. Now, this was at the very end of April. And he arrived in Columbus, I think it was the next month, like May 1st, I think. And so the only devotee I knew was Pujum. And I said, oh, you told Prabhupada I was a devotee of Jesus Christ? He said, no. And I'm thinking, like, who told him? Who told him? And so anyway, I hadn't met any other devotees. And so a few days before Prabhupada arrived, devotees started coming. Wasn't a whole lot of devotees, but from New Vrindavan, there was Kirtananda, who was at that time in good standing. So there was Ranadir, Narayan, who built the first Rath Yatra carts. There was a couple from, Shamadasi and Hayagriva. They just got married. She was working on the first Hare Krishna cookbook. And everyone was like, Prabhupada's coming. And I got caught up in the excitement. Prabhupada's coming. Wow, what's it going to be like when Prabhupada's coming? And we didn't have anything from India, fancy altars, fancy vyasa. So he's building a vyasa, which is basically a wooden box. You put a pillow on top, and then an altar. And Labangalatika, she came. She donated her purple silk sari. We covered the altar. There was some pictures. I don't know what else was on the altar, quite honestly, not a lot. But everyone was really excited. Prabhupada's coming. Usually when Prabhupada was coming, it smelled like paint in all the temples. Someone would be painting something. And so the day was coming. Prabhupada's coming. We're going to go to the airport. And back then, you didn't have to go through all this security. You could go right to the gate. And we were having the kirtan. I've still got that original article from the Columbus Dispatch. It's pretty funny, actually, if you read it. This one man is saying, "Is this your in-flight entertainment?" Talking about us, and yeah, but. And then they said Narayan, who had combat boots on, and he said, "It's out of sight, man. You should chant." So we're looking out the window. Finally, the plane lands, and we're looking. Prabhupada wasn't like the first one to come up. We're looking, everyone's looking up. I'm thinking, am I going to see auras? Like, what's going to happen? And then that was the very first time I saw Prabhupada. He came down. He had a big smile. He's smiling, and people are hitting the ground, paying their obeisances, paying their dandavats, and we're passing out simply wonderfuls and throwing flower petals, and Srila Prabhupada's here, Haribol. And so then we went back to the temple, which was just a house, and Prabhupada stayed on the second floor. The first floor had his vyasan and an altar, and then on the third floor, it's kind of small, but I moved in while Prabhupada was there, and there was about 2 or 3 other ladies, and the men were in the basement. And it was really great. Allen Ginsberg came. Now, Allen Ginsberg was a famous poet at that time. Before the hippies was the beat generation, the beatniks. They're like, hey, man, that's cool. They were black and sunglasses. And, there weren't so many beatniks as hippies, but they liked to read poetry and in dark spaces. And so Allen Ginsberg was very famous among that generation. So I was in the room. We were in the room when Allen Ginsberg came, and he really loved Prabhupada. I mean, he wasn't a strict follower or anything. He was famous, and he came. He was saying, "I'll speak, and then you can speak, and then you can chant." Like he was telling Prabhupada, like what was going to happen. I was like, "Wow, Prabhupada's so humble." I remember Prabhupada saying he was no ordinary man. And actually, I have a note back to Godhead. That whole conversation is in the back to Godhead. Allen Ginsberg said, where will your disciples be at the end of Kali Yuga? Srila Prabhupada said, they'll all be with Krishna. And then, so the time came for the big program at Hitchcock Hall. And Hitchcock Hall in Columbus, Ohio, sat about 2,000 students. It was packed. It was completely packed. So the Srila Prabhupada was up on the stage, and we were around him, probably at the most 15 devotees. And Allen Ginsberg he had his microphone, and Srila Prabhupada had his microphone, and Allen Ginsberg talked about something. I don't remember what it was. Prabhupada gave a talk. In the beginning, his accent was a little stronger, but there, Hari Griva, who was a professor at Ohio State, had all these students in the front row, and they're taking notes, and then we had the most amazing kirtan. Srila Prabhupada led this kirtan. I've been to a lot of good kirtans, but this one, I like to say, Srila Prabhupada opened the storehouse of love of God, because I've never seen anything like it. He was chanting, and of course, this was May 1969. Most of these students hadn't heard the Hare Krishna mantra before, unless they had the album called Hair. Hair was a musical, and they did chant Hare Krishna in that. I had that album. And otherwise, as Prabhupada's chanting, they're gradually kind of memorizing the mantra, and more people chanting, more people are chanting. And then the devotees, we started standing up, we were dancing, and it was so ecstatic. Whew. And people started standing up in their chairs, and some were coming up to the stage. And now, I hope it's okay to tell something that happened with Prabhupada, because it's pretty confidential, actually. But I was going to be initiated the next day. Oh, now, the month before, I just written asking questions about Jesus, right? So backing up a few days, someone said, I hear you want to get initiated. I don't even know if I said that, but ask Prabhupada. He's in that room. I couldn't even talk around Prabhupada. I was like, knock, knock, and come in. I paid my basis. I could hardly talk. Srila Prabhupada, I wonder if I can get initiated. And he said, I think that would be all right. So I was initiated a few days later. No test. I told you, the most fallen came first. I can never pass this test. You guys have to do that. And Prabhupada also did the fire yagya. No one knew how to do fire yagya but Prabhupada. So this was the day before my initiation, and we're sitting around Prabhupada on the stage, and I was like praying, because I'd been praying to Jesus for like a year, and I'd finally got the Bhagavad Gita, and I finally met a real guru, and I just wanted to surrender. And I was just praying and praying, and this is what happened. All of a sudden, Prabhupada had looked over at me. He had to turn his head completely. This only happened one time. And when he looked at me, I don't know what happens. My whole consciousness changed for a few minutes. Like all this stuff was downloaded into my consciousness. And I looked out, and I looked out at all the people and just saw, like, everyone's in this ocean of ignorance. I looked up at Prabhupada and saw Srila Prabhupada is pure devotee. It was everything I'd been reading about, but exaggerated, like. And Prabhupada, I could see it was an austerity for him to come to this material world, because some people would go like, oh, you're on a big vyasa, you're sitting above everybody. People would sometimes challenge him. But I could see what an austerity for Prabhupada to even come to this material world. He's not one of us. So then we had the kirtan. After I'd had that mystical thing happen, and everybody was chanting, and I just went crazy. I actually forgot about myself. I've never had that happen. I felt like Prabhupada gave me a taste, but then I wasn't able to maintain that, because then you have to become purified to be able to be on that platform. But I'll never forget it, and it's really carried me through many years of ups and downs in my own life and in the movements. things that have happened. I just remember certain things that happened, and it's like, yeah, this is what I want to do. You know, don't get distracted. Don't get too distracted. It's so easy. It's a razor's edge, right? If you have a razor, like he says, like a razor's edge, and you just get off just a little bit, right? But then it's like more and more and more. You know, go on YouTube, start looking at devotee stuff, and then next you're looking at what the dogs and kitties did, and you know, one thing leads to another, and whew, what happened? Maya got me. So anyway, then after Columbus, one thing that happened during that kirtan, Allen Ginsberg grabs his microphone and he said, "I've never seen so many people jumping out of their skins." And so after Columbus, Prabhupada was going to New Vrindavan for the very first time. This was May 1969. Now, in the Lilamrita, there was a picture, it says 1968 under the picture. That was a misprint. In this, I was in high school in 1968. Anyway, I'm in college. Srila Prabhupada was going for the very first time. There was just 2 car loads of devotees going. And so my parents got me a sleeping bag. Devotees back then, we slept on the floor in sleeping bags. So I got my sleeping bag and when I got initiated. Okay, we didn't have Tulsi beads back then. We never heard of Tulsi beads. We didn't know anything about that. So Hari Griva gave me a bag of little beads, wooden beads. And he said, string your beads. Take a long, long piece of string, because after you tie all the knots, it's going to shrink. So I had my beads, and Prabhupada, there was 1 or 2 other people initiated. I remember 1, but in his book, he said there were 3. And so Prabhupada chanted right in front of us with the beads, and then Prabhupada did the fire yagya. And can you imagine? This is what happened. Can you imagine getting initiated and you know the 4-legged principles, and then it's your time to come up and say them, and you're so awestruck by Prabhupada, you can only remember 3. That happened to me. And I'm standing there. What's the other one? Everyone's quiet, waiting. Someone in the audience said it. I don't know which one. I was so nervous. And then Prabhupada did the fire yagya, and I gave him, I didn't have that much in my bank account, but I gave him money in an envelope, and then this crystal goblet with a gardenia in it. And I was crying through my whole initiation. And later when I got married, Srila Prabhupada said, "She cries very easily, be kind to her." Prabhupada was so merciful. I never cried much before I met Prabhupada. Then something happened, I don't know what. So then when we went to New Vrindavan, Kirtananda drove Prabhupada, and their car was faster. So when we got to where you go to New Vrindavan, if you've ever been to the old farm at New Vrindavan, it's a different path. It's not that path. It's not that road. There's a schoolhouse on the left-hand side. And at that time, there was not a road. There was just a path. It's about 2 miles long. And in some parts of the path is smashed down grass. You can't even tell. People got lost sometimes. You couldn't even tell where the path was. So we're walking. I got my sleeping bag. I got my little bag pouch. I'm thinking, when are we going to get there? We're going over hills and little streams, and Prabhupada's already up there, right? You know, I'm a teenager, and he's already up there, sitting out. It was in May, beautiful weather. He looked very happy. And we sat around him, scattered. I was hungry because we'd had the long drive, and then we had the long walk, and Satyabhama comes out with prasadam. She's giving us prasadam. It's like, all right, you know, have some prasadam. And when she came around with seconds, she accidentally skipped me. And in my mind, I just thought, oh, I wish I had more, but I wasn't going to say it in front of Prabhupada. I just thought, I wish I had more. And Prabhupada looked up at me. that very second, oh, you want more? It scared me so much. I just nodded my yes. In the next couple of days, every time I saw Prabhupada, all I could think was, don't think blank. He knows everything you're thinking. Don't think a swear word. Oh, he knows I thought that. Oh my God. So after about 2 days of being really uptight, as we used to say, I was sitting outside, and Srila Prabhupada comes with a big smile, looks at me and goes, it is all right. I knew what he meant. It's like, whew, not my mind, thank God. And so then a lot of things happened for a whole month. We got to be with Prabhupada a whole month. The barn isn't there now, but there was a barn that was built onto a hill. They just got the first cow, Kali. Kali was down in the bottom of the barn. And the women, we got to sleep in the top part of the barn. And it was Lambagalatika, myself, if a woman visited, I think Anuradha. It was the best time of my life. It was like, we didn't have showers, we didn't have bathtubs, we didn't have anything. We didn't have soap half the time. But I remember they'd come out in the morning with this gong, 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 gong. That was the alarm clock. Jump out, we'd jump up because Prabhupada was there, and get the well bucket, and wash our face, brush our teeth, run in every day. Mangal Artik with Prabhupada, Kirtananda playing the harmonium. Hari Griva had this horn. It looked like a Swiss Alp horn. He had to stand in another room. It was like this long horn that goes like that. And he had to stand in another room. Toot, toot, then there was this 2 gongs hanging, homemade gongs. Gong, 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 gong. We had great kirtans. And Prabhupada was there. And then then Prabhupada gave Bhagavatam class. It was just incredible. And so one of my services, can someone tell me when I've got 5 minutes left? Because I don't really know like what time? No, once I get, you'll be here for an hour. When it gets close to over with, I can have part 2 because there's too many things. So then what happened? Oh yeah, one of my services, because I was the newest devotee, was washing pots. Now outside we had a platform with a big tin, and I'd get the cold water and be using sand and rocks. I remember they came back, they went into town once. We got you some, it was either scouring powder or soap. We got you some. It's like, wow, I won the lotto, wow. And so Prabhupada's servant came down, he said, Srila Prabhupada wants the outside of the pots to be clean. And I'm thinking, ooh, he's noticing, And the thing is, you never knew when Srila Prabhupada would walk by. So you had to be like real Krishna conscious all the time, just like you never knew when you'd see Prabhupada. That was incredible. And once in a while, he'd stop by and say something. One time, our Narayan came up, he had his guitar, he was trying to teach me a song, Govinda Jai Jai, because they were going to make a record, because LA had made a record, now New Vrindavan was going to make a record. So he's standing there when I'm washing pots, Govinda, I'm trying to learn the song. Prabhupada comes out, it's kind of embarrassing actually. Prabhupada comes out and he looks and he says to him, why are you standing so near? And my face went red. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, oh, he's not supposed to be standing so near. And he didn't even move. It was the worst thing. I am just teaching her a song, Prabhupada. He said, you're teaching her? And that was one thing that happened. The little things like that would happen, little comments and things. And then after the morning program, there was no showers, anything like that. So we had to go one by one down this big hill, Keshigat, to take our bath and in the cold stream. And by the time we climbed that hill again, you get kind of dirty, but anyway, it's pretty good. it was a real experience. If you look in the Lilamrita, you'll see a photograph. I remember what that photograph was about. They didn't explain what it's about, but you'll see some devotees around this white, it's actually a very ancient washing machine. Satyabhama wanted a washing machine, and they somehow got that thing up there, and then it didn't work. And that's what that picture is in the Lilamrita. And sometimes in the afternoon, Prabhupada would sit outside under, I think it was a persimmon tree, and then, you know, people would ask questions and things. And I don't know if you know this devotee, Patita Pavan, he's an astrologer. He has a twin brother, and they're like night and day different. And the brother he was a little crazy because he would ask questions to Prabhupada about Bob Dylan and things like that. And it was funny. I remember one time he was asking about Bob Dylan, and Prabhupada just acted like he didn't even hear anything, just looking around. And Prabhupada was so merciful because I don't know what it was about Bob Dylan, because another girl that came, she always dressed in bell bottoms instead of a sari, and she told me she wanted to be like Bob Dylan in her next life. So Prabhupada did initiate some people right away, like me. And anyway, it was really, it was a wonderful experience. One time I caused some problems at New Vrindavan because I got lost in the woods, and this book had just come out, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and I wanted to read it, but being the new devotee, I felt like if I went and hid in the woods, I would be able to read without someone saying to do something. So I took the book, and I had my bead bag and a little towel, and I went down this path. And the whole woods seemed like Vrindavan. The birds were chirping, the sun was shining, just the whole atmosphere. Prabhupada made the whole atmosphere like Vrindavan. It was New Vrindavan. And I'm walking, and I get to a creek, and there's a rock, and I think, I'm going to read about Lord Chaitanya, because Srila Prabhupada had seen me with that book. He came out and he saw me. Oh, you're reading Teachers Lord Chaitanya? He was smiling. And so I was reading, and after a while, this was like after lunch, I thought, I better go back before they start looking for me. Let me take a shortcut back. And I thought if I followed the stream, I thought that was the same stream that ended up at Keshigat. I'm walking, and after a while, it's like, I don't know where this is leading to. I better turn around. Walking back, and then I hear guns going off, go-karts going off, drunk men. I didn't want them to see me, so I thought, let me go up this hill and around, and I'll continue on the creek. I never found the creek again. And I'm walking for hours. I'm going to condense this. I'm walking for hours, literally. After a while, I don't even know which direction. It's the foothills of Appalachian. I'm completely lost. But I'm chanting. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like Krishna and Prabhupada are with me. I'm not really scared. And I'm thinking, after a few hours, I'll hear the cartels. I'll hear the evening artik. The sound really carries. I'll know which direction to go at least. Never heard the cartels. I'm climbing up it's almost starting to get dark at this point. And I'm not sure what to do. And I'm up on this hill, and it starts lightning. And I heard when it lightens, you're supposed to lie in a ditch. So I lied in a ditch, and I only cried for like half a minute because I was feeling pretty good chanting. And Super Soul inside was keep walking. So I got up and I kept walking in this one direction. And after a while, I see there was a house. And it had a chain link fence around it. And as I'm getting closer, I don't see there's a hole in the chain link fence and a very ferocious dog. And the dog sees me. This dog comes tearing out, full attack mode. And he's like this close. And I just started chanting. And I swear to God, he turned around with his tail and went back in the fence. I just gotten initiated and I'm thinking this mantra really works. This this old lady looks out of the door and then I'm like, can you help me? I was pretty dirty by then, had mud on. Can you help me? I'm lost. And I went in and her and her husband were really nice. They gave me raisin bread with icing on the top and an orange. And they were watching the Lawrence Welk show and they said, oh, we know where that Vrindavan farm is. How'd you get all the way out here? By then it was really raining. They said, you can stay overnight. We'll bring you back the next day. And I said, oh, great. I can be teaching the Lord Chaitanya more. I don't know what's going on back at the farm. I didn't even think about that. That all of a sudden I've disappeared. So then I was reading Teachers of Lord Chaitanya, and I was like, oh, this is so great. See, they couldn't really take me back that night because you still had to walk that 2-mile road of mud. So they said, wait till the next day. So the next day, I'm really happy. I'm coming back, and I'm starting to get near the farm. And Hare Krishna. And I started yelling like really loud, Haribol, like really loud. Here comes Kirtananda. He's looking mad. And we're walking back together now. Where have you been? And I had to hear this from everybody. Do you know that Srila Prabhupada had to stop his translation? We're walking. And by then I started crying. Anyway, we're just glad you're back. He said, I'm going to go tell Srila Prabhupada you're back. And I said, I feel like Srila Prabhupada already knows I'm back. And he said, of course he does, but he still wants us to tell him. So then Brahmananda was there, Gagamuni, all these people came out. Ooh, we had to look for you in the rain, and Prabhupada had to stop his translation. Here's the thing. And ladies, I'm sorry that Prabhupada said this. It was all because of me. I was told, he said, you can send a 16-year-old boy around the world, but you can't send a woman across the street. Something like that. So, sorry. So anyway, I'd seen everyone but Prabhupada. I'm out washing pots, and here comes Prabhupada. My heart was really beating. I didn't know what was going to happen. And Srila Prabhupada comes up. He said, Chintamani, you had this whole place topsy-turvy last night. I'm sorry, Srila Prabhupada. He just said, it is all right. He was the only one that didn't get mad at me. But it's getting late, isn't it? Sure. So that was a wonderful month. And I highly suggest if you go on parikramas with your guru, if you have a dream about Krishna, if you have some epiphany one day, have a notebook. I have got an old notebook that I wrote. I wish I would have written more things and write down. You may think you remember things, but you look at that notebook later and it's like, oh, I forgot that happened. And just take notes of realizations you get. Someday you might get a realization or a dream about Krishna or Prabhupada or your guru. And then you can go back, and I've got this old beat up notebook. It's like, oh, I forgot that happened. And so it became time, eventually Prabhupada had to go to other temples, and we all followed him. It was very sad. We all followed him about 2 miles down the road, and he left. And then, oh, I forgot this part. When I was sitting in the car ready to go to New Vrindavan, Jagopal was just appointed the new president. He comes out and he goes, you can't go. Prabhupada only wants brahmacharis and householders at the farm, no single women. I started crying. There was one Indian lady named Rekha. She acted like she was the granddaughter of Prabhupada. She was very friendly with him. She went and told Prabhupada, and he said, she can come. She can stay there as long as I'm there and then go to another temple. So I got back in the car. I was like, oh, thank you, Krishna. Didn't want to miss out on that. And so Prabhupada left, and there's so many things that happen. Oh, here's another one. This is pretty amazing. Satyabhama, one day Satyabhama comes out, Satyabhama and Shamadasi. Do you want to get married? I just got initiated. No, I don't get married. But Prabhupada wants all the women to get married. And he just got a letter from Aravinda. And Aravinda said, I know I shouldn't ask you, Prabhupada, but could you find me a wife? And I said, I don't want to get married. I felt like I was in love with Krishna. I didn't want to get married. So anyway, then what happened was I had a dream that night. Prabhupada said something like, you have no choice in the matter, something. He said something. The next day I thought, oh, I'm going to surrender. I don't want to get married. But I said, okay. So there was no phone at the farm, and there was an initiation coming up. Bhagavan and his wife were getting initiated in a couple of days. And so they thought they could lump the marriage in with that. So they sent some poor brahmachari to some farmhouse a couple miles away, walking to use their phone, call Aravinda. Do you want to get married? I heard he said, Chintamani, that sounds like a good name. Okay. So that day he was supposed to fly in. We were supposed to get married. And I'd made the garland, and I couldn't have cared less. It was getting late. They had to go on with the ceremony. I was like, it's okay with me, and then he didn't show up. And he showed up the next day because guess what? He got lost in the woods. He got lost in the woods. So we decided we would get married in California. That's a whole nother story. That didn't happen. Anyway, it's probably time for prasadam. Right? Otherwise, you'll be stuck all day hearing things. Continue. How many? And anyone that needs to go, please go. It's no problem. So I went back to my parents' house. Oh, another thing that happened in New Vrindavan. My family was having a reunion, and I knew how to make puris and turmeric potatoes and simply wonderfuls. And I was thinking, I want to go and give the prasadam. And all the devotees said, no, you're a new devotee. Don't go. You'll never come back. No, I'll come back. No, don't go. And I got the nerve up and asked Srila Prabhupada if I should go. He said, I think it's a good idea. So I went and made puris, and I came back. Everyone's like, oh, you came back. I said, yeah, of course. And so anyway, before I went to Los Angeles, which was the La Cienega temple, I went to my parents' house for a week or two, and I got on the mental platform, and I started thinking, I really don't want to get married. So I sent a letter to Aravinda. I don't know what I said, but I changed my mind. Well, he told everyone we were getting married, so when I got there, he couldn't stand me. And we used to go for walks with Prabhupada, two women and one day and 2 men the next. And we would wait in Prabhupada's room. And I was scared to see Prabhupada because I had canceled the marriage. And I said, I'm sorry, Srila Prabhupada. I thought I was in Maya because I'd canceled it. And so he said to his servant, call Aravinda. And he got on the phone. I don't know where Aravinda was, but Aravinda didn't want anything to do with me at that point. And Prabhupada looked at me, he goes, first you say no, now he has to say no. So then not that long after that, we all lived in the temples. The brahmacharis and the women, they didn't talk to each other unless you had some service. You didn't talk to them. So one day this brahmachari comes up to me. I'm like, what's this brahmachari going to talk to me about? And he says, I'm going to Japan to open a temple. I need a wife. Do you want to get married? I was in shock. I just said, ask Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada married us, and him and Bali Mardan went first to Kyoto. They found a house, then they sent for me. So it was about 54 years ago, this time of year, that I went there, and I didn't know Sudama, everyone knows Sudama's gay, actually. There were some gay people in the movement that got married, off and on that got married. And he was a really good devotee. People loved him, but it was great because, nothing happened. So anyway, it was really great. It was a business arrangement. And so we would go on Harinam pretty much every day. Harinam, we'd have a Sunday feast with chopsticks. And Sudama knew how to cook all kind of things. Sudama knew how to make gulab jamuns. We had gulab jamuns, sweet rice, samosa every week. And very soon we found out that Japanese people, at least back then, they didn't like sweets so much. We'd have all these gulab jamuns left over. I was in bliss. I'd have a whole big bowl of gulab jamuns the next day. It's like, hey, this is great. And but I'll stop there because Srila Prabhupada came 2 times to Japan. And the second time Sudama took sannyas, I went to Hong Kong and then helped open the temple in the Philippines. That's another story. How I got Lord Jagannath, that's another story. And it takes a long time to tell all these stories. So I'll stop there and okay.
Why did Srila Prabhupada instruct you with Jagannath?
When Sudama took sannyas, Sudama went, the second time Prabhupada came, Sudama went and asked Srila Prabhupada if he could take sannyas. I didn't even know he was thinking about it. But the first time I'm getting to that. The first time Srila Prabhupada came, he had just done this big sannyas initiation and they'd all come to Japan. I was sleeping out in the car. There was no room for me in the house. And Tamal Krishna wasn't sannyas yet, but he was good friends with Sudama. He was going to take sannyas. So those two were talking. Now I figured it out. Those two were talking. They were going to take sannyas. And so he went and he asked Srila Prabhupada if he could take sannyas. He comes out and said, I just asked Srila Prabhupada if I could take sannyas. And he said he had to get permission from me. And I thought for a minute, I said, okay. I mean, I didn't really know back then women were white or all these things. And I also that meant I had to leave. I had to go. Hong Kong was the cheapest ticket, so I went to Hong Kong. So when I came back from the Philippines, I had Jagannath in this box. They were the first deities in Japan. I was their pujari. I was supposed to bring them, there's another story, I'll just make it very fast, to Hong Kong. And Borja said, you're too attached, you should keep them. So I kept them, but it wasn't authorized until I went through Los Angeles. And no one had their own deities. And people were coming up to me, what are you doing? You got Jagannath in a box in the women's ashram. What? Prabhupada, everyone's saying Prabhupada said this, and Prabhupada said this, and Prabhupada said, just worship the deities in the temple, and no one had their own deities. And I was too scared to talk to Prabhupada, but I had to ask him, I had to. So we could, at that time, have darshan with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada just happened to be in Los Angeles. Because Jai Tirtha was the president. He's like, oh, we don't want to make you cry, but Prabhupada said. So when I went up into the room, now I wrote down, after this conversation, I wrote down exactly what Prabhupada told me. So I know exactly what he told me. So when I first went in, they're in this box that flips up like this, right? They're about this big. And what happened was, so first he's asking about Philippines, what's happening with preaching and all. We're talking. I bought him a sandalwood fan, and I opened it, and I'm going like, see, it smells good in the fan. And I was getting my courage. And that was the time I actually said this. Srila Prabhupada, I have Lord Jagannath in this box, and I want them to see you. And I opened the box and stood them up, and he said, oh, they are gorgeous. Well, I knew he liked them from when they were on the altar in Japan, because different people told me. And so then he said, so your husband's taken sannyas? And I said, yes. He said, well, then you just make Balaram your son, Subhadra your daughter, and Lord Jagannath your husband, because every woman needs a husband, son, and daughter. He said it 2 times. Make Balaram your son, Subhadra your daughter, and Lord Jagannath your husband. And he gave me different instructions. Don't divert your mind. Treat them as God. Take them where, he said, take them wherever you go, inside or outside the temple. We all lived in the temple. It was considered, if you didn't live in the temple, you were in Maya. And I thought, outside the temple, I'm thinking, when is that going to happen? So he said, if you follow my instructions, I gotta admit I haven't done a very good job of it, but he said you will become fully liberated Krishna conscious and go back to Godhead in this very lifetime. After that, nobody could say anything. I mean, I was in India. They have been on the altar in so many temples. They've been in my house for some time, but nobody would dare question after that. Jai Prabhupada.
This is a gratitude to lovely Chinese ladies are you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and you want to hear part 2 also.
Okay, part 2.
So for Prabhupada personally gave a restriction saying Jagannath is your husband and Baldev and Subhadra your children. You take care of them. Just let them go back to God actually. Amazing. So we are honored to have you here. Thank you for seeing, and
Thank you.
we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much.
Krishna Mataji. What is that? This is Kartik month. The room can you pick the cards? So this, if you do Aarti to Damodar, Shiva Damodar every one time, you'll receive 100 benefits. We have actually one devotee, they printed this, and in case you don't have it, we can give them cards as also. You can worship, you can do offering, you can offer meal application. Second thing is, if you're interested to conduct this program of Damodar program in your home, that the Krishna you just left. So, if you want to have a program, you invite your friends, so really free. And you can also make some song and we'll take a show our picture. And we'll see what we can do. Thank you very much. Let us go and take this. Mahaprasad, you will be. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare